Hello, and welcome to the recording of the Connect Force series from November 16th, in which we profile the Communication Department of Marietta College. My name is Douglas Spencer. I was the moderator for the event, and I'm a 1987 graduate of Marietta College with a degree in journalism. Let me tell you a little bit about the MCAA. I am also a member of the board of directors of MCAA, and we are here really just to connect the alumni community with each other, with the school, and with students so that we can all support each other and also celebrate the work of Marietta College. You can join us by following us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, there's an email newsletter, and we will send out links to that as well. Now, unfortunately, we forgot to hit record until the session got underway, so that's why I'm doing this separate intro. Let me introduce the speakers, and then we can dive into where the discussion started after the recording. So our first speaker panelist was Marilee Morrow. In addition to teaching a variety of mass media courses for undergraduate and graduate students, Professor Morrow, who achieved full professor status in 2018, conducts international study tours, takes students to professional association conventions, and presents specialized workshops. In addition to her work at Marietta College, over her career, Professor Morrow has served in a variety of on- and off-air roles. Award-winning senior television news documentary producer, talk show producer and announcer, freelance writer and producer, supervisor of studio production for NFL radio broadcasts, and continuity and production director of major radio and television stations in Ohio and West Virginia. She has a master's degree in corporate and organizational communications from West Virginia University and a Bachelor of Science in telecommunication from Ohio University. Our student for today's discussion is junior Jackie Hun. She is a strategic communications major with a health communications minor. She also participates in the McDonough Leadership Program and is from Cumberland, Ohio. Our recent graduate is Rosie Pinkerton, who graduated from Marietta College in December of 2017 with a broadcast degree. After graduation, she found a role as a production assistant for a local television news station and was able to cross-train as a broadcast director there. Eventually, this turned into a promotion to a full-time director. In October of this year, she accepted a job working for NBC Universal SNY in Manhattan with the same title. Outside of work, Rosie believes in maintaining a good work-life balance through giving back to the community by volunteering with organizations she supports. And finally, we have Justin McIntosh, who graduated from Marietta College in 2002 with a bachelor's degree in radio and television. Justin has served as editor-in-chief for multiple award-winning arts and culture weekly newspapers, and his bylines in ESPN, FC, Stereogum, Pilgrim Magazine, and various best-in-class regional publications. Since transitioning to Marietta, he has spent the last 6 years leading social media and brand journalism efforts with companies like Root Insurance, Pedialyte, and currently is a senior content manager for Cover My Meds, a healthcare technology company. He's also the co-founder of the Flyover Fest, an annual arts and literature festival in Columbus, Ohio. And now we will join the program once we started recording. Thank you very much.
Well, of course. We have fun.
Sorry about
computer
that.
Talk to me. we all have fun together, right? And our areas of interest really complement each other. There's overlap, of course, but just a really nice mix of expertise areas. And then we have just tremendous adjuncts too that really add to what we do. And of course, Joyce Pennington still hanging in there, partially retired, but she's still there.
I would imagine most everybody on this call knows Joyce Pennington and would love to give her a big old hug, which I got to do last month. So what are some of the more popular majors?
Well, it's funny because I looked at the numbers, and Lori Smith is serving as our department chair, and she helped me put this together. But we you guys know we're a small school, right? We have 65 total majors, but that's up. 68 total minors, and then 16 students doing certificates. And that's a fluid thing because it changes every semester depending on who's graduated and who the new students are when undecided people change their mind about things. But the favorite major is strategic communication. And so, of course, we have the ad PR and the org com PR there. The favorite minor is health communication. So a huge growing area, obviously. And, so we have, of course, communication studies, journalism, broadcasting, we have this nice mix, but the most popular are the strategic comm majors and the health communication minors.
Great. Well, that is a great segue into talking to Jackie, our current student, who is a strategic communications major with a health communications minor. So, Jackie, tell us about this semester. What's on your plate?
Not my worst semester. Definitely have experienced worse, but it's been a lot of papers. I've had a lot of fun projects. One of my favorite ones, we did a synopsis where we broke social norms, so I really enjoyed that. And then I'm actually currently working in one of my health comm classes on a health campaign for the suicide awareness of Washington County. So we're creating a whole entire social media campaign to help out the organization, which is really, really exciting to actually get the hands-on experience along with what I'm learning in class. That's really
cool. What are some of so this semester hasn't been so bad. What are some of the other classes that you've been taking over your time there?
So I've taken my favorite class was my top media and health class. We wrote a lot of fun papers. Cody Clemens, amazing teacher, obviously the best with that. But it was a lot of fun just applying. We learned a lot about health policy. And just kind of applying it to COVID, and then learning about how we had new speakers come in every week, and just getting the ideas of like the communication field as a whole, which is really, really interesting to learn about. I'm currently in a graphic design class, which I never saw myself getting into with my comm major, but it's actually really a communication major.
That's great. And I think you're going to use that a lot just because you'll be able to speak the language of graphic designers a lot better than people who haven't had it. So that's great. Jackie mentioned Dr. Cody Clemens, who's on the call. He is also a member of the MCAA board of directors. And of course, we also have Professor Smith on the call too. So I want to give some shout outs there as well. So that's kind of a look at the present. Let's take a look. Let's go back a little bit. So Professor Morrow, you've talked a little bit about this, but from your point of view, how has the program evolved over the years?
There was a focus on the traditions of communication for a very long time, and things were somewhat segmented, right? You're in advertising or public relations, you're in journalism, you're in radio or television, you're in communication studies, and there is really a true overlap there. And the common core of classes that students have to take is the example of that. Everybody has to take media culture, everybody has to take certain comm classes. And so, we have these common things, but yet in terms of the evolution, there's the idea that, okay, we've got to make a decision about our philosophy, and we want to keep focusing on things that are forward moving. The strategic communication, the health communication focus is an example of that. But then we still have the roots in writing skills. We have the roots in basic information gathering, the buzzwords, information literacy, critical thinking. So there's evolution, but there's still those roots in tradition that are extremely important. And just for example, too, with television production, everyone knows that works in TV knows that there's a trend to less and less people being involved. And of course, technology is involved. It's easier to have less and less, but we still let students experience all these different positions. Somebody learns how to run graphics. Somebody learns how to serve as a director or run a switcher or audio teleprompter cameras and do different on-camera roles, because how can you possibly be the one person doing four things if you don't know how to do each one? So, a combination of the new stuff and tradition, and that's been working for us, but it's a constant struggle. There are buzzwords all the time. Do we jump toward these buzzwords? New media, convergence, those things were the big buzzword for a while, and now they're old, right? So we have to be careful with how we market ourselves and how we represent what we do, and we are always trying to think of the best way to represent that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, I want to talk to some of the alums now. And so, Justin, tell us a little bit about what it was like when you were an undergraduate there. What did you study? What were some of the courses you took?
Yeah, radio TV was my major, so I had a pretty heavy emphasis on the kind of broadcast journalism wing. As Marilee was talking about, it was certainly a little segmented at the time, but there was enough overlap that I basically just added ad PR because like I with a couple extra classes I could have this minor as well. But I don't know, my time was a little unique there. I went to a local community college in high school, and so like all of my general ed classes were out of the way prior to Marietta College. So I pretty much spent all of my time on campus in the media department, like just kind of hanging out. I feel like I did work study with Joyce. Ralph Matheny, used to just like constantly be in the radio station with him over every break, manning the station. So yeah, I don't know, but I think one of the big things I at least took away there was that kind of hands-on, piece that like I felt like I got to touch everything, and even going back to like I think Jackie was saying with her like graphic design class, I had to take a graphic design class. I had to take a website publishing class. I even ended up getting a website design internship through art that led to the Birdwatchers Digest job actually. And so it was like it was through some of those different connections and just different hands-on kind of opportunities I had. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to absorb it, so I felt like I was just kind of always there.
Yeah. I understand exactly what you're saying. Rosie, tell us about your time at Marietta.
Sure. So I actually came in undecided. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I arrived at Marietta College. But my dad had suggested maybe television. I think he wanted me to be on camera. I knew that wasn't a possibility for me. But my freshman year, my first semester, I took Media 101 with Professor Smith. And then I remember like my second week, Marilee came in with Katie and Gage, I think, to introduce the television station and how we could work there if we wanted. And I think I was the only freshman that signed up to do it that year. I think most people later on did it when it was like a requirement for a course. But I figured if I was trying things out, I should just say yes and do that. And I just loved it. Pretty much ever since then, I've said, you're going to have to drag me out of a control room, kicking and screaming. I love control rooms. I love the atmosphere. I love the fast pace. I love pressing all the buttons. Like Justin and Marilee said, it's all hands-on there. You get in on day one, you're learning how to operate prompter. I really hope we've gotten a new prompter since I've been there. I have a feeling we haven't, but man, oh man, you learn how to operate prompter. You learn how to do video, graphics, and then as you progress, audio and even on camera positions and directing and technical directing. I think I did weather like all of twice. I couldn't figure out how to point, to the right state, even let alone the right town. But it was just such a great environment to try things. And, if stuff messed up, stuff messed up. I remember we had one broadcast. The only graphic we had was a turkey. It was the only graphic we could pull up was just this one turkey. And you know what? That's not far off from my experience in news. There's some days when just everything stops working and you just gotta go with it. So, you think, oh, it's like a college TV station. That's what, that stuff happens. No, that happens in the real world too. And you have to be able to work around it. So even stuff like that was just like a great learning experience. Eventually I went on to work at the radio station. I really enjoyed that too. Got to do a couple live events, things like that. And they, every time I left the station and every time I left the control room, it just reminded me that this is fun. but I really want to be in the control room. So that was big for me.
That's great. That's great. So, Justin, excuse me. Do you have any favorite? I don't want to embarrass anybody that's on the call now, but do you have favorite professors from your time there?
Yeah. I mean, Ralph, as I mentioned, was certainly like a father figure for me. I would also say I would be remiss to not mention, Art and Lori as well. Smith, Art was instrumental in that, website design internship with Rogers Digest. Lori recommended me to a internship at the Marietta Times, which was my really first kind of taste into, like daily newspaper kind of, print journalism. Which I ended up sticking with for most of my career after that too. So like just even some of those connections I had, but everybody on campus at the time, I basically adored. It just felt like I was always there. Mike McNamara just came on. I remember I meant to mention this actually in the last question too, but so one of the other unique pieces of my time there was 9/11 happens while I was like in work study. With Joyce, and I watched it, happen with all of my professors and, students. And, it was just this very kind of like unique, poignant, kind of profound experience of being able to like witness that through this career kind of lens, I guess. And, so like I just watching, that with those professors, that there's a bond that kind of happens with some of that too. Right. And so, yeah.
Great. Rosie, do you want to give a shout out to any of your favorite professors?
Sure. So obviously, Mr. and Mrs. Professor Smith, Art and Lori are amazing. Mara Lee, who guided me through my entire college career. And then my junior year, Professor Rude. I took, I think, 3 media law classes with her and was just blown away by all of the practical things that I learned. So I learned the hands-on things, with Professor Smith and Professor Morrow. And then, she taught me kind of behind the scene things that I really needed to know. And I didn't ever think I'd find law interesting, but I did. I found it fascinating. So yeah, my fourth shout out would definitely go to her. I was really glad when she kind of joined the media team.
Well, and for those who don't know, that would be President Rude's wife, correct? Yeah. So I'm gonna jump out of my moderator role and jump into my alumni role and just give a shout out to the incomparable Bill Shepard, who was my favorite professor, hands down, when I was there, as well as Bernie Russey. He was there. Joyce says that Bernie Russey's still with us. And of course, Ralph was there as well. But to this day, I still think of Bill Shepard, and I hear him in my voice telling me not to comma there, damn it. Or things like that. So he had certainly a really important impact on my life. And I know I can see some shaking heads of folks I know as well that feel the same way. All right, well, that's enough about the past. Let's go into the future. So, so Professor Morrow, how many of the students, obviously Cody Clemens, but how many of the students go on to get advanced degrees from the program?
So we have found our weakness here. When I learned that you wanted to get this information, I know my own students, like my advisees, those who have done that, but I don't know about some of the other students. And so we do need to do a better job of tracking that. In my field, in the journalism, broadcasting, those fields, typically the international students are the ones that end up going on to advanced degrees. And they go to, USC, they go to Chicago, they go to England, wherever. They go to, major cities and get into the programs there. And some of them focus on media production, but others go into strategic communication. Just depends on the student's interest. But Cody Clemens and Lori Smith, gave me some definite information about this. They couple recently for Lori, and then, Cody has 3 right now, but we do our best to track them, but there needs to be a more exact way of tracking. And really we have this, flux in the Career Center right now. And I don't know, I think we need to have a better infrastructure there so that we can say for sure how many students are in grad school. And some go and don't finish, but we only know that if they tell us, right?
Right. Not to put you on this spot, Jackie, but what are you thinking of after you graduate? What do you think about doing?
that is a great question. So right now I have decided this semester I am going to apply to grad school. I would like to go get my master's in public health and go into health policy, health management, or health education. So something along those lines, which is what's interesting me.
That's incredible. I think that's something that we certainly need now. Our other alums, do either of you have advanced degrees or have any plans for that?
No,
No,
not at all.
either.
I mean, I'm in, like digital space basically, and that stuff's changing so rapidly that I would be hesitant. Even like the certificate programs I go through sometimes feel like, Google certificate is irrelevant within a year.
Yeah. I have no advanced degrees and certainly am not going to get one at this stage. But I do think that there are times where I do feel like there was a time where advanced degrees were really important, and now I feel like they're not necessarily as important. So I think it ebbs and flows, but I'm eager to hear what some of the other alums on the call have to say when we open it up for questions. I want to talk about your job search now. So for Rosie and Justin in particular, how was your academic training in communication from Marietta College? How was that received when you were looking for a job? Justin, you want to go first?
Yeah, can I ask for some clarification? Do you mean the degree from Marietta College, like it's the institution, or just
more the program?
The program.
More the program.
My first job out of college, was with Birdwatchers Digest, as I mentioned, and then right after that, it was at the Marietta Times. So for me, I benefited from that kind of localness of it. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily come up since then. I think more than anything, I just continue to go back to like all of the variety of skills that the training and the that skill building that I had, I think, at Marietta College, or that, like, even what Rosemary was talking about, like learning to be okay in the fire, and I've worked at a couple startups, and so even it very much was like a startup kind of culture. It felt like at Marietta College, in the media department at least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the piece I feel like I take with me more into like the job search, if that makes sense.
Sure. Rosie, I bet I bet the experience that you've received at Marietta certainly jumped off the figurative page of your resume.
So I struggled a little bit just because I moved 8 hours away, where very few people had heard of a liberal arts college in Ohio. So the name Marietta really didn't do me any favors right off the bat. But once I found the keyword, for the job that I was looking for, and I realized, what I needed to type into search engines, I found a lot of success. And then what really helped me even more from my time at Marietta College was my capstone. So for my capstone, we put together, we worked on our resumes, we made online portfolios, and then we even sat down and had mock interviews. And we practiced, phone call interviews and Zoom interviews, which were still fairly new when I was in college. And so that really, really, really allowed me to feel comfortable finding a job.
Okay.
Even if they didn't know the name of my college.
Right. So Professor Morrow, how are some of the ways the faculty approaches getting students ready for their job search, if that's the direction they want to take?
Well, sure. That every major has to have an internship, right? With a few exceptions. And so, of course, the internship is a huge part of the process for students to either figure out that this avenue is not for them, or, oh my goodness, I love this, I need to do more. Also, the applied classes offer a lot of opportunity for students to develop their portfolio. And that portfolio, as you know, can be electronic, it can be a binder, whatever. There's a huge range of what is representative of different majors, but having the opportunities to do that is really significant, not just with classwork, but participating like in the Marcolian and Fifth Street in student media, whatever. So students have lots of opportunities to do that. Now, in terms of helping students find jobs, sometimes people will approach us, hey, we have this position, but our career center at the college is instrumental there too. But, we're going through transition there, and whoever the new leadership there ends up being, that person will be really important too. And students do rely, on a variety of things to get interviews, to find leads. And it's as everyone knows, things are changing very quickly about how people find jobs. And I've told people this recently. My daughter, she's 25, her first real job and her second real job, she did not apply for. She did not find a listing or anything. Someone found her through LinkedIn. And so that's another thing we have to consider. People can do all the work in the world, but maybe it comes down to LinkedIn. Or at least for the moment, right?
Right. Things change. So are you actively, are your students active on LinkedIn? Are you helping them learn how to leverage the platform?
The majority of the students that I have are on LinkedIn, and they start very early perfecting their presence. It's not an official part of classes for me, but I know Lori Smith also teaches freshman seminar classes with me, but we talk about this stuff on a regular basis. And most kids come into college with a LinkedIn profile.
It was something we did in my capstone class as well. We had seminars on how to write the perfect bio and things like that. And I think Lori just mentioned it in the comments that it is something in capstone still.
Great.
Capstone is tremendously important. It really helps students focus all the stuff that they have. And in the best case scenario, they really have too much, and they have to pick the best of the best to put in that public portfolio.
So capstone was not a thing when I was a student. So for the other alums that are from my era, could you describe what that is, please?
Sure. And of course, Lori, who's been teaching it for a long time, could feel free to chime in here. But basically, a lot of things are covered, but main focus is a tremendous, huge research project that really helps them ultra focus their areas of interest, talents. And all of these students, the outcome of it is presented at our All Scholars Day. And some students really get a lot of mileage out of whatever their capstone focus is. And the internship, of course, feeds this capstone experience too. Students have to have their internship completed, or they can do it concurrently, but that also, feeds whatever they decide to focus on too. It's really the capstone is a lot of work and a lot of stress for students, but it really helps them focus of the 4 years that or the 3.5 years at that point that they've put into Marietta College.
Sounds great. Justin, did you have that when you were there?
I did. Marilee oversaw my capstone at the time. It was, I vaguely recall a video I remember assembling, but I pivoted right out of it really helped me in that sense that not because of this capstone, but because of one of my internships, I realized I didn't want to go into radio and TV anymore, and that's part of why I pivoted into print journalism. But so I never ended up using that capstone project actually, but I had one.
I want to talk about internships a little bit, because that requirement is new at least for me and my peers. Are there any parameters around the internship program?
Like I mentioned, every student with small exceptions has to do an internship, and students have to find it on their own. And very rare is it that someone comes to us and says, hey, we have an internship. They have to actually go through the process to find the internship, which is so valuable, as everyone knows. And they develop goals with the internship supervisor. And with these goals, some can be learn how to work in a professional environment, and others can be very specific, get better at writing in AP style, right? So, it depends on whatever the internship is and the goals that are developed. But the student also with this internship keeps a journal And it doesn't have to be anything extensive, but bullet points of what they've done. And they keep evidence of whatever they're doing, whether it's photos of them doing something fun or media products or whatever. But at the end, they sit down and think about the outcomes. And some of them will be directly related to the goals, and others will be a surprise. Maybe they learn something that they never expected to learn. But with the internship too, they have to link those outcomes to classes that they took and help them understand how their education did directly impact their success, or maybe some struggles with their internship, and really help them to further fine tune, their interests and their talents. And also, the internship, the network, and someone I saw in the chat mentioned how important that network is. And this is the first part of really building that, aside from, the friends that are going to be their network, the friends at Marietta College that are going to be their network. This is another way to do that.
Great. All right, before we open to questions, I want to just talk a little bit about Marietta College and the liberal arts element of it in general. What impact has the liberal arts education had on any of you? So any of you. Jack or Rosie, do you want to start?
Sure. So I learned, well, one, like I talked about, I really like learning about the law. I found that fascinating, and I would not have taken that had it not been a liberal arts requirement. It wasn't required through communications. It wasn't required through my broadcasting major. I just did it because it took some other box, and I loved it. And then I took a class my senior year, or was it my junior year? I took zoology. And I know way more about bugs now than even just taking that, let alone what I was learning in the course, it taught me a lot about how I learn, and even teamwork, because I was the only non-bio major in the class. And there were 6 other biology majors in that class, and they all just kind of rallied around me, took me under their wing. And, we'd go out, we get pizza. They teach me how to do charts, lab charts. And just the sense of community that I got from this one random course I took on a whim. And how, everyone in the class just was willing me on and cheering me on. And I still talk to most of them. I think 5 out of the 6 I still regularly talk to. And they weren't in my major, and they were all, doing their own thing. But so that the liberal arts education really does teach you a thing or two when you're not even expecting it at all. So I was glad I went to a college that required things like that.
Nice. Jackie, do you have anything to add?
I would say my experience is very similar to Rosemary's. I think that, being in my graphic design class, I'm definitely not the best, but it is giving me some skills that I would have not have gathered if I didn't take the class. So I'm very thankful for that. It's just kind of given me a broader sense for my education, which I really appreciate, that I get a little bit of everything.
Justin, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. It's the cliche of learning how to learn, or that critical thinking kind of piece. It's just been instrumental through all of my career, from from going to a startup and having to jump into something and figure it out on the fly. Those skills are, I still use those pretty regularly throughout my life. So I'd say that, that piece, even I took an astronomy class that, I thought I would have no interest in. And, it was the most fascinating class I probably took when I was there. And it, it just gives you that kind of love of learning, and that, we're in a knowledge economy now, right? Everything's becoming digitized and going online. And, I think one of the biggest kind of soft skills that at least I look for in some of the people I'm hiring. It's that critical thinking piece and the ability to, adapt and kind of, there's this old quote I love from an old CEO of GE, that he says that you're not hired for what you know, you're hired for your ability to adapt. And I always use that as a lead in my cover letter, that for jobs actually was even though I may not have, or if I was applying for a pivot job kind of again, I moved from print journalism to what I would call brand journalism now. So I've used that as a way to even sell myself with some of my perceived weaknesses. If I may not have the skill set right now, but I know, how to adapt quickly. I know how to learn quickly. I know how to, take complex information and absorb it and regurgitate it in a streamlined, succinct kind of way that other people can understand.
Right, right. And Professor Morrow, what's it like teaching within a liberal arts curriculum?
I love being able to talk with people. That is the best part. And the whole push toward being critical and looking for solid, rational, well-rooted sources of information. I love that part of the process. And sometimes you have to look really hard for that stuff, but I love talking to people about these things. And I think that's one of the best parts about being in our environment. And certainly we have some applied programs that don't fall under the traditional, liberal arts umbrella, but we have that entwined in every single class. There is the liberal arts way of thinking in every single class.
Great. Great. So let's open it up to questions. So I apologize. I don't think I did this in the beginning, but we have Michael Joliet on here. He is the vice chair of the MCAA, and he is also serving as kind of stage manager tonight. He has been managing the Zoom, and he has been looking through, I imagine, all of the questions. So what questions do we have, Michael?
Yeah, so feel free to add more questions to the chat, but Jackie, the first one's going to go to you. So what do you need most from alumni? What do you want to talk to us about? What do you hear your peers saying that they need from alumni?
Personally, like direction. I am a 21-year-old about to go into the real world, and I have no idea what I am doing. I have had the best college experience. My advisor, Cody Clemens, has helped me along the way and given me the guidance, but it's scary to think about going into the real world and not knowing what to expect, like what I need to do to prepare for a job, that sort of thing. Just any advice that I could get from anyone.
Okay. So that actually follows up to the question that we have for Rosemary and Justin. And what's your best advice for students? Justin, let's go with you first.
I don't know. So actually, I can think of this. There's a book I love called Body of Work, and it's about kind of finding that like narrative, like for your life's work. You're probably going to change jobs and careers, a dozen times throughout your life. Like I think that's okay. Journalism certainly felt like a calling to me. I almost stumbled into, but it still came a time when I felt like I needed to adapt and kind of move on from that. So what's that through line for you and your work? What do you want? If it's health information, or policy or whatever that is, like how can that stick with you through whatever job you find. Sorry, hi Kevin. I saw a chat pop in there and I got minorly distracted, but I'd say that's my biggest one. Like think, be willing to adapt, grab your skills anywhere you can, like learn as much as you can, absorb it. And I don't know, I had 3 internships. Like I'm all about like try stuff out. It doesn't work, move on, like try something different. It's okay to pivot, it's okay to adapt and move and try something new. Just put yourself out there.
Rosie, do you have anything to add?
I don't want
you time to think.
I don't want to completely echo what Justin said, but something that I repeat to myself regularly is that nothing is truly permanent. If you find yourself in a place where you don't want to be, it's okay to leave. And you know what? Don't worry about your ego on the way out. Like if I can't remember what professor it was that said this to me. It might have been Dr. Rude. I can't remember. I'm sorry if I'm giving this quote to her, but she told me a story about a woman that had her PhD, was making 6 figures, and all of a sudden she was laid off. And you know what she did? She went to Walmart and she worked at the jewelry counter until she found another job. Nothing is permanent. Don't worry about your ego. Do what you have to do and make sure you're enjoying life while you do it.
Amen.
If you're someone,
I love that ego piece.
Yeah, that's really important.
Because nothing's beneath you, right? Like just try everything.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up. Just enjoy what you're doing.
So
And
I'd
looking
like
through
to,
I'm just looking through the alumni who are on this call that I know. I think there's been a lot of major career shifts here. So I think, the alumni on this call are, yeah, I saw you, Maria. I think there's a lot of people who, made a shift, and they're probably happier now than they were when they thought, it's hard to decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you are 21, and what's going to make you happy in 30 years as, when you're 20, because it's going to change.
right. Hey, I'd like
I don't
to,
even know what I want to do the rest of my life,
Right.
right? Like, none of us do on some level. We're all still figuring it out.
it's true. Hey, I want to jump in and with my alumni hat on. And so one advice I would give is know your strengths, play to them, and don't try to pretend you can do something you can't. Always be interested in learning. I've worked with younger folks, and there's a feeling with some of them that they have to know everything. You don't have to know everything. Be very clear with what you don't know and play to your strengths, and be there to learn. And I think that's really that will really help propel you in whatever you decide to do. So that would be a little piece of advice that I offer. What else we got, Michael?
We're getting some good questions, but Marilee, one of the questions that came in is like, what communications channels or what vehicles are still available? Like, is the Marcolian still happening? WCMO, WMA? What are all those things that are still happening?
Sure. Yeah, the Marcolian is not a print situation, is not in a print situation anymore. It is purely online, and that is entirely student run. I mean, I answer questions, provide support. Those students make every decision. Same with the television and the radio stations. WCMO TV is on Suddenlink Channel 15 and also streams on YouTube, and students are in charge of the production of things, the content. I make sure things are turned on, and if there's a problem, I try to fix it, right? The radio stations, the WMRT FM is the one that's the traditional NPR kind of sounding station, right? And students do traditional announcing shifts there, but they have to put together news and sports casts, get some entertainment and some weather, and they use, aggregate software just like we do in the TV station. WCMO FM, my joke with students is, you can do whatever you want, just don't get me in trouble, right? And some years, like right now, radio is immensely popular. We have a lot of students who are hardcore into radio, and I think COVID really fed that. They wanted to do something, and that's one thing that you can do. And but with some years, we have students doing foreign language programs. A couple of years ago, an American student was learning Korean, and she wanted to do a K-pop show. So she did it all in Korean. And she said to me about 3 shows in, this is so much work. So I reminded her, quality over quantity, right? You don't kill yourself over it. The whole purpose is to have fun and just get better at what you're doing, right? So, but yes, so the traditional media is still there, but many students are cross-platform students, and it's different every semester. And Lori and Cody, who are also on this, can say everything that we do. It just depends on what the students want to do. And we do follow their lead. We provide a lot of guidance, obviously, but it's about them.
What time does WCMO stream?
It's on Tuesday and Thursdays. The show starts at 12:29 Eastern and ends at 12:55. So WCMO television. And this is our last week, though, of TV news for the semester. Once Thanksgiving hits, everybody poops out. So we'll start up again. We have Thursday, one day left, and we'll start up again, about 3 or 4 weeks into the semester in spring.
I dropped the links I could find really quick while we were chatting in the chat. So if any alumni want to take a look, the links are there. Before I get to a couple of the other questions, Darren Lachelle asked, I'd like to ask the panelists how valuable each of the student outlets, WCMO, radio, WMRT, or the Marcolian, was to their education and future careers. So why don't we start this time with Rosie?
I think that I already spoke to this, but WCMO really showed me what I wanted to do, unequivocally. That's where I wanted to be. I enjoyed WMRT. I enjoyed both radio stations, but it was always the television control room that was where I wanted to hang out and spend my days. So
Thank you, Cole, for the link for WCMO. You saved me from Googling it. Justin, how about you?
I know this is another interesting question for me because I did not participate at all in the Marcolian. I had no kind of print experience while I was at Marietta College. So all of my experience there was, with the radio and TV stations. I didn't necessarily carry that through my career, but again, it was that just ability, or that kind of like being encouraged and to try and to fail and to keep doing it. That kind of rinse and repeat. Piece of it, I think, is the biggest piece I probably carried through.
How about you, Doug?
I think it is just Rosie spoke to this, being able to think on your feet. I think I learned a lot from working in the television station there. I certainly did a lot of writing, which I still do to this day. And that was facilitated through the Marcolian, but also through the broadcast news and also through Professor Shepard. So I think it's just the overall experience. And I do have an appreciation for how news is created and distributed, that I think a lot of other folks that didn't have that kind of training, that they don't get. They don't understand what goes into a news production, whether that's digital or print or whatever. And I think I'm really grateful for that.
Go for it, Marilee.
I just want to say, though, just because a student does a radio shift doesn't mean that student wants to be a DJ. Right? It's all about number one, getting the experience, and number two, having fun with it. But just like Douglas was talking about, learning how to put together information in a way that others appreciate, right? Or that makes sense to others is really important. It just boosts confidence, and it is fun. And just learning that you're not going to die when the microphone is open, right? Nothing's catching on fire. It gives you so much more confidence when you're in whatever situation down the road. And so certainly some of our students do exactly what they want to do. You look at Rosie, for example, doing exactly what she wants to do, but others just, tuck that in their tool belt as they go off into the professional world.
Jackie, so I've been told that you had, or I've heard a little bit about your internship at Marietta Memorial. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that experience has been like for you and how that you've taken some of your coursework there and what you're learning there?
Yeah, so actually, when I came to Marietta College, I was a biology major, thought I wanted to go to med school, had a pre-quarter life crisis, turned that around, decided I wanted to go into healthcare in a different way. So I ended up working with the marketing department for Memorial Health Systems, which was really, really an interesting internship that I got to have. I didn't understand that there's so much more internal to a hospital other than the doctors and nurses, and those people really put it together and kind of showed me the strings and how it ran. But I was able to apply a lot of my coursework with my health communication classes to what I was learning within it, about anywhere from writing to their media writing and how you write to fit different demographics, to health policies that they were using. So it was really interesting throughout my experience of getting to work hands-on with creating ads or videos for the hospital.
Marilee, how can alumni help the department now, or is there a need that you have from the alumni to support the department right now?
Well, I tell you what, if there is any positive from COVID, is the proficiency everyone has now with Zoom. And just being available to be a part of a class, to talk with students, to do a short workshop, whatever. Everybody's story is valuable, and the advice people can share is valuable. And I think that that's the most that we need. Certainly if you want to donate money, great. But your knowledge, your collective experiences, and students might not seem like they're real super into it. Maybe sometimes I've experienced guest speakers come in and students are just real quiet, but part of it is like, oh my gosh, I never thought of this stuff. And that's what I think most alums can contribute, is their experiences. And I think it's so valuable. and just really helps students. And it might not seem apparent when it's happening sometimes, but it really does.
Awesome.
All right. I
so-
think, oh, sorry, Mike.
I was gonna say 2 more questions really quick. There's time, Doug. We got 4 minutes.
Okay.
So we'll do a lightning round then. Rosie and Justin and Doug, this is a question for you too, Doug. What course did you not take in college that you wish you would have had?
Ooh.
Or you wish you would have taken?
Graphic.
Go for it, Rosie. Okay, graphic
I'm
design.
so glad that Jackie's taking it.
Yes. It's really helpful. I'm glad it's a requirement, Jackie, or that you're taking it, because everybody needs to learn how to draw a little bit, just that much.
I so wish I had taken any kind of Photoshop graphic design course whatsoever.
How about you, Justin?
You know, if anybody could have foreseen like social media marketing, like, you know, in the year 1999, you know, I don't know, that probably would have been it. You know, I spent a decent bit of time, you know, as a social media manager, you know, writing copy for social media accounts. You know, that was just such a unique, you know, that's one of the reasons I actually left print journalism, is I felt like the industry wasn't keeping up with everybody else, and we were getting lapped and left behind, and I felt like my career was going to suffer because I wasn't getting that skill set as well. But yeah, I don't know, something around even digital media. When I was there, we didn't even have the digital, like, you know, editing equipment, you know, for broadcast stuff too. Like, I was all nonlinear, you know, and I think even maybe my senior year, Tom Hodson brought in like Pro Tools or something. And I remember like, oh man, I like just too late. I was just too late. I was so bummed.
I will say, I'm going to surprise people. I'm going to say accounting, because it took me way too long in my career to figure out how to manage my books, and I am rubbish at it. So I think I really could have benefited from a little accounting.
Okay, and the last question is for Jackie. Jackie, what has been the best part about Marietta College for you this far?
I met my absolute best friend ever in the world at Marietta College, and that is my friend group, and the people I've met that are now my family is my favorite things about my college experience.
Well, I think there's a lot of people on this call that would echo that and let you know that it doesn't end when you leave Marietta College. There's a number of people on this call that I'm still in close contact with, and we pick up right where we left off. So I'm glad you're having that too. All right, let's wrap it up. I want to thank everybody, especially the panelists, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate everything you've done. Thank you, all of you, for attending tonight. This has been a great show, a great number of people. It's really great to see some of your faces. Lynette, I love seeing your face, and Darren. So I want you to know the next one is not about communication, but in January, we're going to do this same structure with accounting, which I probably should pay more attention to. And it's Wednesday, 26th, but we're going to do this at noon. It's going to be a lunchtime session. So if you have folks that are into accounting, or you're into accounting, or you're just curious about how other types of students at Marietta College are doing, then please join us for that. As I said, we will send out an email tomorrow. We'll have the links from the chat. We'll have links to our social media accounts, as well as how to sign up for the Trailblazer newsletter. So with that, I'm going to say, have a great night, everybody. And again, thank you for coming. Take care.